Hello and welcome to this Mirror Facebook Live, all about the first half of the government's £650 cost of living payments that hit bank accounts from today. This is by far the subject we get the most questions about on the Mirror Money team. I look forward to taking you through everything we know about these payments and what it all means for you. I'm Sam Barker, a money reporter at the Mirror, and I'm hugely grateful to be joined today by Martin James, consumer champion at Resolver. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Sam. Thanks for having me on, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. So we're here to answer your questions as well as kind of talk you through this huge announcement. So if you have anything you'd like to ask or you just want to have your opinion heard, please feel free to post it in the chat. We will do our best to answer both during the session and towards the end. So let's get right into it by laying out what has happened. So Martin, could you mind explaining what are these payments all about, please?
I certainly can, Sam. Well, as I'm sure many of you watching will know, today is the first half of the cost of living payment is going to be heading its way to bank accounts around the land for the people who are entitled to those payments. We're still not sure precisely how many people will be entitled, but figures of up to 8 million have been mentioned. Now, the key thing in that sentence, once again, I'm sorry to say, as is always the case with these government announcements, is this is the first day. The government have actually said in the time since we last spoke that it could take until the end of July for this payment to be made. And we are also hearing that they are expecting a couple of delays because of the size of the technical rollout. Now, the first payment is rather confusingly is going to be £326. So it's half of the 650 that was announced by the government. I don't know why it's 326 as opposed to 325, but that should be heading towards your accounts in the next 2 weeks.
Perfect, thank you. And obviously there's a list of people on means tested benefits who are eligible for this money. Would you mind just running us through who's eligible for this, please?
Sure, that's no problem, Sam. So there's a list of benefits. And by the way, if anyone's unsure, the Mirror has a whole guide, in fact, many guides on the various schemes that are available online. So don't worry if you miss any parts of this, you can refer to the website or listen back to this later. So the people who will be in receipt of the payment will be those who get universal credit, income-based job seekers allowance, that's JSA for short, income-related employment and support allowance, that's ESA for short, it might say on your bank account statements, income support and pension credits.
Perfect. And actually, it's very good timing that we asked that question there, because just turning to the comments here, we've had a couple of people who've commented. Natasha Parker asks, if I receive ESA and PIP, am I entitled? So if you didn't catch Martin there, yes, you are for the ESA, certainly. We've also got Anthony Baptiste. He's asked, will I be able to get it if I claim universal credit and carers allowance? So yes, you will for the universal credit. You won't, unfortunately, for the carers allowance. I think this is a bit of a kick in the teeth to everybody who, all the carers who claim just carers allowance but no other benefit. Is that as far as I understand, that you're not eligible for this 650. So thank you very much, everybody. We're definitely going to be coming back to your questions, so do keep them coming. But Martin, I wondered if you might be able to talk us through, obviously we've spoken a little bit about which benefits will get this payment. Obviously, there's a huge list of benefits who aren't eligible at all. Could you mind running us through who won't be eligible for the £650 cost of living payment, please?
Exactly, I certainly will, Sam. And actually, I just wanted to say you made a really, really good point there. There'll be some people who'll be listening to this and thinking, well, that's not fair. My sister is a full-time carer, and so this is something that's pretty close to my heart. So we are looking in between the cracks in the government's announcements to find out who's missing out or whether people should be entitled, which is why it's really, really important to get all of this feedback from you so that we know kind of who feels that they've been left out. We can then put those questions to the government and see what their proposals are. So do keep those coming in if you don't qualify or you feel that you're slipping through the cracks. Now, there are some benefits that don't qualify for the scheme, and these include the new state employment and support allowance and the contributory employment and support allowance. There's also the new style job seekers allowance. That's just a different title depending on where you are in the country and where your benefits have been switched over from one to another. Now, all of this is quite wordy, just to kind of give you kind of an overview of the best way to work out if you're going to be entitled or not. If you're in receipt of benefits because you might be working part-time or because the payments are contributory, so you've already paid in quite a bit of money over the years, and you've got savings of over £16,000, which is usually the cut-off zone for certain types of benefits, you probably won't qualify. But if you fall under that, then you should probably speak to your local benefits office or the office that pays your benefits just to see if they've actually got you listed down for the right benefits. Because if you don't have very much in the way of savings, you might actually be on the wrong one if you are in receipt of any of those benefits I've just mentioned.
Perfect, thank you. And of course, throughout, towards the end of this call, we will be getting into if you are not eligible for the £650 cost of living payment, which is the biggie, that's the biggest pot of money on offer from the government during the cost of living crisis. If you are not eligible for that, there is a lot of other help out there, government help out there, financial help, and we are going to be going through everything that we know about, everything that's available, and how when you're going to get it, how much it is, all of the details. So stay tuned, and we'll get into that in the second half of this call. Now, I just wanted to sort of sidestep slightly. We've had a few readers who've emailed questions in, and I just wanted to take a minute to answer these. One reader says, I get the state pension. Will I be eligible for the cost of living payment? I'm not on pension credit, just the normal state pension. Thank you very much for your email. I'm afraid that you would not be eligible for the £650 payments, but you are eligible for a separate pot of money. Again, we're going to go into the details of this later. But as a pensioner, you're eligible for a £300 one-off payment in November or December from the government, provided that you also qualify for winter fuel payments. And of course, you will also get you should also get the £400 energy bill rebate next year if you are a bill payer with a meter, and of course the £150 council tax rebate if you are in tax bands A to D. We've also had Terence Ellis, who's emailed in. Thank you very much, Terence. He is also a state pensioner. He says, I get the full state pension and council tax and rent allowance, the same as people who get pension credit. Maybe they haven't always paid all of their national insurance stamps. So I've paid a lot of money, but I won't get the £650 cost of living payment. Is this correct and fair? And I think this email really hits on what Martin was just saying, which is that there are an awful lot of cracks in this scheme. And if you're on means tested benefits, you almost definitely will get this £650. We're going to get into some of the people within that camp who might get it late, some of the people within that camp who should get it but won't. So we're going to come on to that. But Terence asks, is this correct and is it fair? So unfortunately, it is correct. Whether it is fair is a totally other question. But again, so as a pensioner, as I said with the answer to the previous one, eligible for £300 one-off payment. That's called the pensioner cost of living payment, which is due later in the year. And again, £400 energy bill rebate, £150 council tax rebate. We're going to sum all of this up later in the call. Now, we had an email. It sort of broke my heart, and I've got the permission of the person who's emailed in, keep them anonymous, but to read this email out. And she says, is there any help for people who don't claim anything? I'm on the lower income threshold. I'm on the cusp of being eligible for means tested benefits, but I'm not actually eligible. My partner and I both work full time. We are selling practically anything we can to make ends meet. We're both exhausted. We're tired, becoming more mentally ill, and we've had enough of this self-serving government, they say. We also have 2 young daughters. It's people like us who get nothing, and we deserve a break. So obviously, firstly, we're very sorry to hear of your situation. And very sadly, it means that, although you are clearly quite hard up, you don't qualify for these £650 cost of living payments, which again, this is the biggest pot of money on offer from the government. The government is prioritising people on means-tested benefits. Their thinking is that if you are on means-tested benefits, that you are the people in society who need this money the most. However, if here's the kind of cut-off point for means-tested benefits, and you're here, that's a pretty cold comfort for you, because you're not an awful lot better off than people maybe a couple of maybe slightly worse off than you, but they get the £650 this year and you don't. So what I would say is that, like with the other questions above, £400 energy bill rebate coming next year, £150 council tax rebate, and another bit of help. Again, we're going to go into this in fine detail kind of later in this call. The household support fund. The household support fund is the government's answer to anybody who kind of falls down the cracks slightly of all of the other financial help. So you can get the £650 payment and still go for the household support fund. It's doled out by local councils. We're going to get into quite how that works later in the call, but just to kind of keep things top level at the moment, there is help out there, and you should contact your local council if you haven't already. So thank you very much, everybody, for emailing in and for posting your kind of questions underneath. I can see them coming in. We will be cracking through them at a rate of knots later in this call. But firstly, Martin, I just sort of wanted to ask, what should people do if they are eligible for the £650 payment, but for whatever reason they don't get them this week? 1 in 4, I think, people, the government have said, will get these payments today. But what happens if you've read all these headlines and you're checking your bank account and that money doesn't turn up? What are the next steps for you?
Well, this is, the most important question of all, I think, Sam, and it's certainly the one that I'm being asked by everybody. Unfortunately, when you do get a rollout of a scheme like this, there are teething problems and there are errors. But the problem is when you say to people, you're going to have money on a certain date, then that's the date that they expect to get the money on. And of course, it's only through looking at the government website and getting further information that we're able to, to tell you about the time frame that's now changed for the actual payment of this. The government are clearly very concerned about the various benefits officers being overwhelmed with calls. And I've spoken to a couple of advisors there, and they've said wherever possible, if you can hold fire on calling until the end of July, then that will free up enough time for them to go through, look to see if there's any mistakes, and try to process things as quickly as possible. But again, it's really, really important to say that if people are worried about, whether they will qualify or not, if it's not clear, off the back of our advice today, if you feel that you're falling through the cracks, if you think that you might be entitled to some benefits because of your financial situation that you've not applied for, then it is worthwhile contacting these officers now, because, don't wait around if you feel that, if money really is so tight and you're on the cusp, as that heartbreaking email from before that you read out, Sam. There'll be lots of people in that position who might not realise that they've edged into the territory where some benefits might be applicable. So do get in touch at that point. But if you know that you're entitled, we have to wait until the end of July to see when this money comes through. And again, as Sam mentioned before, we'll go through a couple of the things that you can do right now to potentially get access to some cash or some vouchers to help you through the next 2 weeks.
That's great, and absolutely stay tuned. We're going to be going through this with a fine-tooth comb. But the first thing I just wanted to do is to talk a little bit about exceptions to the rule, because anyone who's been paying really close attention will notice that there are a few benefits which we've not currently mentioned with relation to this £650 cost of living payment coming from the government. And the reason is that although they are means tested, the way that they are paid out works in a slightly different way. So if you claim housing benefit, but no other benefit, as it stands, you are not due to get the £650 from the government. And there will be a lot of people that are kind of scratching their heads at this, because they would say, well, when I applied for housing benefit, it was a means tested benefit. The government's giving out money to people on means tested benefits. Where's mine? And the answer is that the government, if you only claim housing benefit, the way that HMRC's systems work, computer systems work, is that they can't track you down in order to pay you that £650. That's what the government is saying. So even though housing benefit is a means tested benefit, if you only claim that and no other benefit, you won't get the 650. If you claim housing benefit and another form of benefit that's on the list of qualifying, universal credit and so on, then you will get that through the universal credit arm. So the government's kind of answer to this kind of dilemma is to refer people to the Household Support Fund. So again, we're going to go into this. We mentioned it earlier in the call. We're going to go really deep dive on this later in this call. But the Household Support Fund, just in brief, £1.5 billion pot of cash, which the government has handed out, is being doled out by local councils. They're doing it on a kind of case-by-case basis, so you will have to apply for it. It won't be paid automatically to you. And the way that it kind of works is a bit of a postcode lottery. Some councils will pay you cash. Some councils will pay you vouchers, for example. However, the highest that I have heard a council paying out was about £200. So you're talking about £200 from the council as opposed to £650 coming from the government. So if you're on housing benefit, unfortunately, it's not a great deal for you. Another thing to talk about is people who are on tax credit. So if you are, a tax credit claimant, working tax credit or child tax credit, you will get the £650 payment, but you won't get it at the same time as everybody else. So most people will be getting the first instalment this month, with another one following later in the year. if you are a tax credit claimant, you will get your first payment in the autumn, and we don't know exactly when, and then there will be a second payment to follow in the winter. That's the only benefit which is being delayed. The payment is being delayed in this way. And the reason that that's happening is it's another kind of government snarl up, really. What they're saying is that because a lot of tax credit is being phased out and replaced by universal credit, the government want to avoid paying you the £650 for your tax credit claim. And then anyone that switches over this year to universal credit, they might get paid another £650 from the government, which would obviously be great for anyone that it happens to. But the government are so concerned about this that they are kind of kicking the payments down the road for people who are on those particular tax credits. So those are the two big kind of exceptions there. Housing benefit, you should get it, but you won't, unfortunately. And those two tax credits, you will get it, but you'll get it later than everybody else. So Martin, do we know very roughly when we will be looking to get the second half of this £650 if you are eligible, please?
So I've been, just to spare everyone else from having to do this, I've got the government guidance to this kind of saved on my computer, and I refresh it on a regular basis because that's really how most people are getting the information. We do obviously contact the government to find out what they're saying, but the information is few and far between. At the moment, covering all of these, so the second payment, if you are in receipt of applicable benefits, that's coming in the autumn, but we haven't had anything specified beyond that. And the tax credits, the child tax credit and the working tax credit that you just mentioned there, Sam, again, the first payment is due in autumn 2022, and then we're hearing that the second payment will be in winter. As Sam said, it's just to ensure that there aren't duplicate payments. But those timescales haven't really been broadened out since then. Now, as you'll be aware, in October, that's when we'll get the £400 paid towards the energy. That's no longer a loan now, as it was when it was initially announced for £200. It will be a £400 rebate that will go towards the bill. So there may be potentially a double payment for people in receipt of the two tax credits. So you could potentially get something in October and maybe something a month or two later in December. But we're still waiting for formal announcements as to how that will go.
Thank you, Martin. Now, I just wanted to take a moment just to kind of turn to the comments and the questions, because I can see them flooding in, and thank you very much. So we've had Chloe Barker, and she's messaged and she said, "Can I get it if I live with my mum?" Now, there's a few things to sort of get into here. There is help available for people in your situation. I'm just going to describe some of it, and then you can just pick the bits out of it that apply to you. Oh, I see. So you've also got, I've only just joined Universal Credit. I live with my mum. Do I still get it? So if your Universal Credit claim went through after the 25th of May of this year, then I'm afraid, no, you don't. So all of this £650 payment, in order for that to come to you, you need to have had that claim approved and over the line, is my understanding, by the 25th of May. So you say you've only just joined it. So, I assume we're talking about, July, maybe late June. Unfortunately, that cutoff point has kind of passed. So that would mean that the £650 scheme is probably shut to you, unfortunately. I'm so sorry to have to say it. However, there's a few other little bits of help which it might be useful for you to know about. So you mentioned that you live with your mum. So I don't know how old you are, and I don't know how old your mum is, but if she is over state pension age and she is eligible for winter fuel payment, then there is a £300 payment which should be coming from the government in November or December. That is paid out per household. So even if you were the homeowner, and for example, I don't know, your mum or your dad has moved in with you, that will be paid out to your household. So that is one option. If either of you claims any sort of disability benefit, we've not really gone into this too much on this call, we will do later. If either of you claims a sort of a disability benefit, and again, that kind of went through before late May, that was approved before late May, then there is a £150 payment as well coming from the government. That's just a one-off flat rate fee for people on disability benefits. Again, very top level, we're going to get into exactly how this works later. But I'm very sorry to say that, for anyone who's on, who's maybe just joined Universal Credit or any other means tested benefit, unfortunately, after the 25th of May, that's it. The government's kind of put the drawbridge up, and there's no more. They're not paying that money out. So someone else, so Amanda Denny, is sort of another universal credit question. She asks, do you get it if you're working and on universal credit? So you will get it, the £650 payment, if you're on universal credit, regardless of whether you're working. Obviously, some people on universal credit will be working, some people will be out of work. Regardless of where you are at, it doesn't really matter about your income. The tapering element of universal credit, you can forget all that. If you're on universal credit and your claim went through before the 25th of May, you're getting the £650. That's how that scheme will work. So, we've been promising quite a lot with this call. We've been saying, don't worry, guys, we're going to get into some of the other help available, and we've kind of given you a little taste of it along the way. If you are not eligible for these £650 payments from the government for whatever reason, don't worry, because depending on your circumstances, there is other help available. And some of this is, absolutely anybody in the UK can on paper apply for this. So there is definitely something for you. It may just not be quite as much as you were hoping. So, Martin, if you don't mind, let's kind of between us, let's just kind of divvy up some of the help available. So do you mind taking us through some of the ones that are, at the top of your head, and then I'll kind of jump in at the end, because there's an awful lot to get through with this. But yeah, between us, I think we can really crack this one.
Absolutely. Well, let's just reiterate some of the ones that you can apply for right now. Sam's already mentioned it, but the Household Support Fund, anyone can apply for that. Each council has different criteria, but you apply generally through the website, and it can be usually anywhere between £100 to £150. That should be available to most people now, so you shouldn't have to wait around for that. There's the £400 that you'll be getting in October towards your energy bill that we've already mentioned. And there are also additional payments of £150 for people who are in receipt of a range of disability benefits. I won't list them all because there's quite a lot of them, but they are on the Mirror's guide to all of this. So there are also additional payments that you might get there. It's worthwhile bearing in mind that within the benefits system itself, there are a number of payments that you might not have applied for that you might be entitled to. Now, lots been made about the fact that people aren't claiming enough pension tax credits. So if you're a pensioner and you're struggling, there are millions and millions of pounds to be claimed out there. You might actually be missing out on something that you're entitled to. And there are also a range of existing benefits to help people like carers, to help people who are supporting. Once again, the government isn't exactly, rushing forwards to publicise these. So the best thing is to speak to your local benefits office and ask them to explain your situation, and ask them to go through the benefits that you might qualify for that you might not even realise. Now, Sam, there's still a couple of other things out there as well, aren't there?
There are. I'm just sort of running through my my mental list. So we've spoken about energy bills, the support, the £200 loan not loan kind of being changed to the grant. We've spoken about the Household Support Fund, pensioner, the £300 payments for pensioners. Have we delved into that one?
That's a good one to actually go into a bit of detail, and all the winter payments as well, I think.
Yes, that's right. So if you are, we've had a few comments from people saying, I'm a pensioner, I'm above state pension age, but I don't get the winter fuel payment. What does this mean for me? Unfortunately, unless you qualify for winter fuel payment, that £300, which is actually quite a generous pot of money from the government, is kind of closed for you. So let's just talk a little bit about winter fuel payments. So at the moment, obviously, you'd be very unfortunate to be in a part of the UK that isn't currently baking in a heat wave. I know I am, and I know Martin is from his very summery shirt. But if we sort of turn the clocks forward to the winter, there's an annual payment which is made, sort of on a yearly basis, called the winter fuel payment. So if you were born on or before the 25th of September 1956, you can get between £250 and £600 to help pay your heating bills. And basically, in order to get this, you have to basically be of that age, and you need to have lived in the UK for at least one day during the week of the 19th to the 25th of September this year. So above 25th, older than 25th of September 1956, and lived in the UK for at least one day during the week of the 19th to the 25th of September this year. If you tick both of those boxes, you are eligible for winter fuel payment. There are some kind of exceptions to that, but basically what that means is that an awful lot of pensioners should be getting this £300 payment from the government. Confusingly, so this £650 payment we've been talking about is called the cost of living payment. The one that's specific for pensioners is the pensioner cost of living payment. But there are some of the exceptions which apply to this are, if you've been in a care home, for example, during that period, or if you have been in hospital for an awful long time, I believe it's more than a year, then you're not on that list. But yeah, I think it's really worth knowing about. And I think from the number of questions that we've been getting on this call, I think one thing is very, very clear to me, which is that the government, Martin, you've said this on the call already, the government is not really doing a very good job, in my opinion, of kind of telling people that are eligible, what they're supposed to be getting and when. And I think that that really kind of speaks to the level of questions that we've been getting here on this call. Now, thank you, everybody. We've had so many people chime in, and I really, really wish that we could get to every single one. Unfortunately, it's only a half an hour call, and we're sort of rapidly approaching the kind of Cinderella moment, unfortunately, when we sort of we need to end this call. However, what I would say is that if you have got a question on these payments, which perhaps we haven't gotten around to today, you can email it to us. So this afternoon, we're writing a big piece for the Mirror, answering all the questions that we get on this subject. I'm told it will be the main story on the Mirror website this afternoon. So if you would like to appear in that and have your question answered, please email me with your name, your question, and ideally a photograph of yourself if you're happy to do that. My email is sam.barker@mirror.co.uk. That's sam.barker@mirror.co.uk. And we will answer that question. I will answer these questions for you. So I'm afraid that's probably almost everything we've got time for today. I really hope that you found that helpful, and thanks so much to everybody for tuning in and commenting today. Thank you. Also, a massive thank you to Martin James for giving up some of your time today. So I think that's it from us, I'm afraid, and we will be holding another Facebook Live next Thursday at 1 p.m. on another aspect of the cost of living. Thank you very much.